just played for you Frédéric Chopin's Grande, Valse, Brillante, Waltz number 2 in A-flat major. Chopin wrote 19 waltzes altogether, but he chose to publish only 8 of them, those he considered his finest. This is one of the 8. And he wrote it at the age of 25 after a very happy time in his life. 5 years earlier, in 1830, when Chopin was 20, he left his native Poland for Paris. He was going to establish himself there in Paris, and he did after 5 years of very hard work and dedication, writing some magnificent works. And a rising amongst all of the pianists in Paris at that time, vying for a spot as the top pianist. Chopin did achieve that and was absolutely at the top of all of the pianists at that time in Paris as a composer and a teacher and improviser. I would give anything to hear how he improvised. He was in good health at this time, and he had the extraordinary experience of being reunited with his beloved parents. They hadn't seen each other in 5 years, and they met at a town called Carlsbad, midway between Paris and Warsaw, and spent 3 idyllic weeks together. Chopin wrote to his sisters, "Our joy is indescribable. We never stop embracing each other. I am at the summit of my happiness." Imagine that. And after they left and said goodbye, tearful goodbyes, a day later, he sat down and wrote out this waltz. And the joy and the exuberance and the exhilaration is so evident. It's also evident that this is a virtuoso piece, it's a bravura piece, and it's one of the longest of all the waltzes he wrote. So let's take a look at this waltz that I think has a very special place in Chopin's heart. It's a Grande Valse, Brillante. Some of them are called waltzes, some are called valser, but there are only 4, the first 4 that are grande, big, and for the big ballrooms and pageantry. And he starts with what I hear as a trumpet introduction like this. Now these are the rhythmic motive, yum ba ba bum. And then we have a 5-note descending motive, melodic motive. Now what key do you think this is in? Then he does it again, and higher, and a 3rd time. Hands join, up an octave, and up to here. And the answer is the tonic A-flat major. So all of that I just played for you is a 16-measure introduction on the dominant E-flat. There's A-flat major, and if you had your triad or the inverted chord, and when Chopin starts the main theme at measure 17 on the tonic, he uses those same 3 notes in this order. How beautiful that sounds, spaced so wide apart like that. Now, on this introduction, I'd like to break it down a little bit for you. I have loved working on this piece and learning it. And my hope in the lesson today is that I can help you to break down some of these things so that they're easy for you to play and understand and practice so that you'll meet your goal of being able to play this wonderful piece. So it was kind of difficult for me. This part was easy. These chords. And then the next pair. And I broke it down like this. We have the outer voices are octaves in the left hand. So we have a whole step, E flat to F, and then half steps. And the next pair are all chromatic. The right hand has all of these. And if you put those together, the only whole step is the first two notes of the left hand. Everything else is half steps. These are all parallel thirds. Next pair, that's half of it. But there are inner voices. And these inner voices in the left hand, this just amazed me. The left hand only has E flats. And then you add and the right hand has, this is the most fun of all, with the two fingers 2 and 3 on the two black keys, and then, and that was hard for me. It's a big stretch, but once I saw, oh, it's still the fingers 2 and 3, and when you put the whole thing together, it also helps to bring out that gorgeous harmony. And all together. Announcing, come to the ball, come to the dance. And now the musicians are strumming up and gearing up with this motive that repeats again and again and again. Again, again. Top. Now this at the top was very interesting as well. It's the 5-note motive. And this, I kid you not, is what's in here. 4 and 5, and the final one was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the piece begins. But of course, that's not how we play it. In 3/4 time, which this is, the waltz, if I count 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and, I'm going to, on the 1, I'm going to call out what note I'm playing. 1, that's the F, and 2 and 3 and 1, that's the E flat, the D flat, and the B flat. And if I call out fingers, and this is what you watch, and this is what you emphasize for these downbeats. Fingers 5, 4, 3, and 2. It's easy. So here it is. 5, 4, 3, 2. And I take this all with the right hand. A lot of people facilitate and take those last 4 with the left hand so they have time to get up here. I just have never wanted to do that because the whole thing is one long cascading uninterrupted waterfall for the right hand. Now look at this chord in the left hand. Beautiful. And it's going to, it's a 5/7. And that's exactly what he does, but that resolution is here. So our ears are hearing this. This is all an E flat dominant for this intro. 4 measures. Third 4 measures. And the final 4. Now let's just stop right there. A waltz. Now the waltz was around for 2 centuries. The 1600s, there was actually the early form of the waltz was called the lella, and it was a peasant dance that people danced outside, but the format was always 8 measures and 8 measures and at least another repetition, and that slowly over the decades evolved into the waltz. And when the big concert halls and ballrooms were built, people came indoors and the waltz became a more elegant dance. And it actually became extremely popular in the early 1800s. And Chopin didn't have a whole lot of enthusiasm for the form of the waltz. He sort of scorned at it as not the most elevated musical form, but he did join the popular appeal that was the rage of the day and write a lot of waltzes too, and thank goodness he did. It's just a gorgeous piece. But the point of this is, it is all based on 8 measures, 8 measures, 8 measures, 8 measures, 8 measures, 8 measures for the entire piece. It's 8 measures. I actually would like to show you what I'm looking at right here. And this is a brand new engraving that I just made of this waltz. And as you can see, it's a bigger piece of music than we normally see, and it's single, it's loose leaf on the 11-inch by 17-inch wide horizontal format. And you see some colors and labels and lots of marks on this, which you do get in another format. There are 9 pages of this, which is the main file. You'll learn your notes from these 9 pages from your black and white pages that look like this. This is how yours comes. And I just love looking at this. Here is your 8 measure, 8 measures, system 3, 8 measures, system 4, 8 measures. So you see absolutely crystal clear the 8 measure structure of every phrase for the whole piece. It makes it so easy to see where they begin and where they end. And this was the, now these 8 measures, as you can see by these long phrases here, really divide up into 4, 4, 4 measures, 4 measures. Along with your other supplies, I'm just going over this chart package with you now. I have then taken those 9 pages and put them on a vertical view called the satellite view. And this is the entire piece on the black and white vertical 11 by 17, page 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And I have to make this one first before I can then make my favorite part of the chart package. And I've heard from a lot of you that it's yours as well, the color structural analysis. And I may sound pretty excited about this. I am excited about it because this is how I get deeply acquainted with what's in the piece, how to learn it, how to track it, how to memorize it. And here are the 4 pages, the 1, page 2, page 3, and 4. And we're going to refer to this a lot in the lesson. Now, if you would like to get your chart package, you can go to my website, sallychristianmusic.com. These are digital downloads, and you simply take your PDFs to a print shop and have them printed on the 11 by 17 inch cardstock paper. You'll love these. They last forever. They stand up on the music rack. And they're really a joy to work from. And let's just take a quick look at this overview now, because the whole lesson will make more sense to you when you see this opening thing here of the key code. It's actually a section code that I made. I made this all up. The regular music doesn't show any of this. That I make these from public domain music, so the notes are exactly the same, but they don't show up in these nicely blocked out units. I make this up. I group them like this. I re-engrave every single note. And they're copywritten. This is my engraving. And here we have the form, and I color code these 4 sections, A, B, C, D, and the order A, B, C, B, A, B, D, and then either side is an intro and a coda. Those are the bookends. But the colors, here's your intro, fanfare, introduction, 8 measures. 8 measures. See this right-hand column? Nothing but the number 8. Because that's how many measures there are in each system. This is what I call a grid piece. It's on the grid, just like a city laid out north, south, east, west, and all the streets line up on that grid. That's how this piece lines up with the 8 measures for the entire thing until we get to the 4th and final page, where we have a strange appearance of only 4 measures, and I did this by design. This is so important, that one phrase of 4 measures, and then the closing goodbye farewell phrase of 13 measures, but other than that they are all 8 measures. So our section A is in the pink boxes, and as I said, the form of the waltz, 8 measures, repetition 8, and now 8 and 8 is your 16, and then the repetition now is embellished. So now let's go back to our music and see how this embellished version works. But before we do, I would like to talk about the importance of 4-part harmony. And the left hand, now starting with just the bass notes, in measure 17, I'm going to play the downbeats of these 16 measures. And when I'm through, see if you can find the 4 notes that I'm playing. I'm starting on A flat, D flat, E flat, A flat. Next 8 measures. Closing 4 measures. He only used the A flat, which is the tonic, first scale degree. Then he went up to the subdominant, the 4, the D flat. Then he went up to the dominant, the E flat, and up to the tonic A flat. Dominant, tonic, second, 5th, first, 4th, 5th, first, 5, 1, 2, 5. I like to start with that, and then I get to the other 2 beats, beats 2 and 3, where I have these chords. Let's just play these chords now by themselves before we put the whole left hand part together. Notice I'm breathing. Do you hear my touch? Tell a story. So if I put everything together now, listen to the notes that I bring out in the chords. We know our bass notes now, and there are a lot of skips on this. It's going to take some time to get this rote memory of the spatial moving over the keyboard. That's why I like to break this down. First the bass notes, all with the 5th finger. Chords, G, A flat, up to G, F, D natural, 6th, F, and yodam, 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 and now 4th, 3rd, first time with 6th, And the last time, so watch those differences. If we put that all together, now the left hand, and your posture and your buoyancy of your body using your arms. We play the piano with our arms. So I am going to scoop the bass notes with the full arm, my elbow out. My teacher used to always show me how to do this. You kick out the elbow, kick it out, and drop down. Scoop down and light, light, down. Light, light, down, light, light, down, light, light, down. And I brush these. That last one is held. It's a dotted half note, so be sure to hold that. See how I have with the thumb? I bring out that little melody. Next 8 measures. You want to acquaint yourself with this. And above it now we have the interval of a sixth, which Chopin was extremely fond of. It's really a duet for soprano and alto. And now my fingering now becomes extremely important. That this is all legato. Did you hear how smooth that was? No pedal. You will add pedal, but you need to be able to produce a legato tone without pedal. So all the fingerings are written in for you. Please follow them. Or if you don't like them, write in your own. But you've got to get the same fingerings every time so that you develop your rote memory consistently. Those are the fingers I use always for that chord. Next goes up to the G, and that complemented that's the same chord, both sixths. Now this little ornament is tricky. I pull and out. Pull on that fourth finger. That beautiful G flat. This one's hard too. Now we go on to the arching arpeggio phrases. And instead of 4 and 4, 4 and 4, I hear these as all one long 8 and another one long 8. The right hand has these gorgeous going up. And the left hand has these all on a bass note of E flat. Like, and it repeats. And finally the tonic A flat. And the repetition. Instead of this E flat, it goes down to here. Now this is interesting. I'll show you the music on this. That we have in both places here. This is the first 8 measures and the second 8. In the left hand, we have half notes here with this D flat and B flat. They have to hold with as a separate part here, starting right here, measure 33. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and this one. Above it, now we have a tenor descending counter melody to all of these. We have a counter melody that's you see the joy in this. This is the light on us. This just cannot contain happiness. So you need to hold those thirds. Now that's a detail that you might miss, but it's important. Chopin is scrupulous in the note values that he wants sustained. He wants those thirds like little horns coming through. And the repetition. So far the same. Difference. The first time we have the resolution of the eighth measure as a 3-note chord, and the second time we have it as a sixth. There are going to be many times in the piece when he does it one way the first time, another way the second, and your job is to track it and play it correctly. The right hand also has a difference. The first time, phrases make 2 measure phrases, uninterrupted legato for 4 measures, and the repetition of that arpeggio phrase idea is in single measure phrases, and that makes a different sound. Let's see how that does translate into the sounds that we make. And what I evolved into with this was to get the sweep, and I kind of linger on this trill at the top. This is tricky. And then the first time coming down is G, this interval, D flat to G flat makes the fourth. Measure 3. Measure 4 is the third. C to A flat. So he's going back and forth. Fourth. Excuse me, that's a fifth. Diminished fifth. See if you can hear that now. Second time I'll make the little lift at the end of the phrase. Just a little one. Same intervals though. And all together. First time no lift, second time a slight lift. Chord. Lift. Sixth. Now we go on to our section B. We ended on the A flat tonality, the tonic, the same A flat, now on the third beat. Does this pattern. This is new material, and he's using, guess what? He's using the 2 motives from the introduction. He does the rhythmic motive of yan da da da, and he does the 5-note melodic motive inverted, going the other direction. So let's see if we can find that noisy pedal there. So here, rhythmic motive, inverted melodic motive. Chopin loves these. He's using that. That's one of his signature ideas. And then it goes up a step now to B flat. And then up to E flat in octaves. And the final closing is joyful. And those chords are so much fun to play. And he's going to use them in that extraordinary orange box on page 4 that I did with the 4 measures. That's where they come from, right here. The last 4 measures of your B section. Now the left hand on here, if I just take these bass notes, it's A flat on the downbeats, D flat, A flat, and D flat. Next one, B flat. And then finally a D flat, which is the subdominant fourth scale degree, and 5-1. And what he's doing is setting up that same 5-1 relationship at the beginning, all introductory material on the dominant, and the main theme one starts on the tonic. He's breaking that down into micro units here of 4 measures, beginning on the dominant, ending on a tonic. Like so, we start the dominant A flat, and at the 4th measure we've resolved to a D flat major. Next one starts on the, and it's these fifths are buried in this. So we have D flat major, up a step note, B flat, that's the 5th. There's the 1, E flat, 5, E flat, these chords in the left hand, the same way we had in the intro. Rich, lush chords that are so wonderful to play, but with all of the black keys, he's doing here with these chords in the left hand. Measure 61. And it has this rising, which I like to bring out, and under it, black keys. It just fits the hand so beautifully. That's what they say, Chopin was so pianistic. He understood the keyboard and the hand, the human hand, and how it best fits with the longer fingers playing the black keys. He loved black keys. I'm gonna get to that more in just a minute. Then we have the repetition of the B section with a beautiful added element instead of the single that we had. We have, he's jumping up 3 times the A flat and skipping down. Instead of this, he's giving a glissando, like that, in the form of, and then, those are really fun to play after you learn them. And then the last, and this is the same. Now, let's take a look at these scale passages here. And we have right here, this measure, this is also interesting. You don't see this too often in music. With our left hand measures, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But in the right hand, we count 1, 2, this 3 and 4 doesn't have a bar line because this scale, this glissando type passage, takes the space of 2 measures, but he doesn't want to interrupt it with a bar line because there's no perceptible beat in here. It spreads over the 2 measures. And 1, 2, and the final 3 and 4 right there. So breaking this down now, This was difficult for me to learn. I had to take a long, hard look at this of what really was this scale. Start on the upper note of the A flat, it has a G natural, and then it goes to G flat. And I figured out that really was a D flat major scale. And this brings me to the point of the scales with all the black keys that Chopin was so fond of using. There are 4 scales that you will need to practice separately to be able to play these glissandi type passages. The first one has 3 flats, E flat major. The second has 4 flats, A flat major, our home key. And D flat major with 5 flats. This is one of my favorite scales. I love that one. And the final was the G flat major with 6 flats. And the beauty of those last 2 in particular is that the fingers 2 and 3 in each hand play the black keys, the 2 black keys, and the 3 black keys are always played with fingers 2, 3, 4 in each hand. So in the case of D flat major, the only other 2 notes are the thumbs that play the white key F and the white key C. I'm digressing here because if you haven't been taught this, a lot of people are learning these pieces without a teacher. And I really love being able to give some points that will help so you practice correctly. One of them is to learn accurately the fingerings for these scales. So I always teach the D flat major scale blocking first. This is very powerful. Do it with your eyes closed, then play it finally up to tempo. And that's what we have in this passage. And it happens to start, the only one out of the scales, pitches, is the opening G natural, otherwise it's straight D flat major. And goes up to the F. Once you know that, this will be a piece of cake. The next one starts on B flat, and it happens to be this E flat major scale. But it doesn't start with the A flat, it starts with A natural. And that's the confusing part. You go, well, what scale is it? What scale starts with A natural? There's the A flat. That's your E flat major scale, prefaced with the A natural, and from then on it's all E flat major. And that will be easy for you. Let's put everything together now on this repetition of the B section. This is 16 measures now all together. Fun to play that. Off. You can take that as the octaves first to really get that, and then you're just adding your thirds. Fourth, fifth, fourth, sixth. Now on this is hard to get this really clean and sharp if you don't use your arms. I grip it and push snap it off. A little jerk with the arm. You have to use your arms. And then we have the C section. And it starts with the same A flat we ended on. And it goes to what I call theme 2. Now listen to the absolute beauty and tranquility of this, and tell me what it reminds you of. Tell to yourself, what's the character? What do you think he's feeling with this now? Well, for me, with these parallel 6, it starts with the thirds and the sixths. So this is a duet for 2 people, the soprano and the alto. But you could make the case that this is a dialogue that he's having with his 2 parents, with their 2 voices. I'm reading into this a little bit, but part of creating an interpretation by being first absolutely faithful to the score is, what does it mean? What is the character? What was he feeling? And put your own feelings and ideas and life experiences into it. So I think the story of his ecstatic reunion with his parents and how it then was put all into this piece is important to consider. And I hear this as a really embracing. And look at the simplicity of the left hand here. Starting on the A flat dominant and single A flats. It's a very simple accompaniment. Tiny little counter melody there, and then some chords. The next 8 measures, he goes up to a 5th. And octave. To our theme 1, but a little less busy. I hear this a little more tranquil. And I hear we never stop embracing each other. It starts in the upbeat. 3, 1, 2, just like the B section did. 6th there. Legato fingering. Very important, the fingering here. It's all written for you. 2, 5, 5, 1, 5, 2, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1. Is the soprano. Alto, when you put them together, tells a story. That B flat. Off. Right hand. Now 2 offs. And off. Show the music here because these are the details. This is the first time of the 16 measures of the C section in the green box. And the little staccatos here at the end, look at these pink dots I put in. Da-dum, ba-dum, nothing, nothing, and then da-dum, da-dum. And there's one here, da-dum. But go off on those little tiny details. And this is a great point and time now for me to do back to our CSA, Color Structural Analysis, our second page, which is all section C. Section C only happens for this part in the piece. It doesn't return again. He's got a little separate little world going on here of intimacy and the embrace and the quiet, and it's almost like a dream. I hear this as a reverie of basking in those memories of that exquisite time they all had together. And if you hear that, your hands will be soft, your body will be soft, and the sounds will come out just the way you're feeling. And that's so important, to get right in touch with our feelings directly. And that changes how we play. It changes how our touch is. So here we are now. I have just finished playing for you the first 8 measures and 8 measures. The repetition had the skipping variation, and I have written for you that differences on your 3 green boxes, box 1, box 2, box 3. This one is not in a solid green line. The final wrap up of the 8 and 8 measures of our C section is, I used the stars, and do you know why? Because it is exact repetition. And it says right here, exact repetition of measures 97 to 112, which is the second time these. So you really only have to learn the first time and the second time, and this one is exact repetition. But there's more good news. The right hand for all 3 of these green boxes is identical. I couldn't believe it. I said, you've got to be kidding. He's got to have varied it somewhere in the right hand, but the answer was no. All of the variations happened in the left hand only. So this is why I have these labels. First time, left hand single notes. Here, I'll hold this and play it. You can just focus right on that music there. And the repetition, the 5th. And this single note, and octave. The second time now, we don't have just the single A flat notes, we have a 5th, and then we have bigger chords here instead of the 5th. We have the chords and 3 octaves instead of single note, octave. Important differences. Okay, so now let's go on to our main file here on the second time and listen for those differences in the left hand. Here's the second time. Do you hear this, how I'm phrasing this? If you can make it just almost floating, how can you make it sing so light and graciously here? Of course, these have to be very quiet in the left hand. One long phrase. Now our skips. It goes to a whole new key area with this outburst. And repetition. This 5th relationship starting on this and all of this, those are the only the bass, the downbeats. Let me play these pitches in the left hand, and I think this is a very significant point in making sense of this section that starts in measure 113. I call this the passionate outbreak. We have an F pedal point in the bass. These are the bass notes, downbeats. Those are the 8 measures. Is he setting this up to be a 5-1 to go to B flat minor, like all the other things? Or we'll find out at the end of this next 8 measures. Bass note in octave the first time, F, 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 E natural, F, E natural, F. Where is he going with this? Why is he hovering around this F and the next door note of the E natural? And this ninth, tremendous agitation. He's jolting us out of the dream we had of the tranquil, mesmerizing caress of the A flat major. All of a sudden we're jolted out of that. Like, oh my God, we had to part, we had to leave. Part there. Listen to these. Almost melts like a pool of liquid. And right away, back. Final green box. Notice the difference in my touch? The sun came out again. And this left hand. Portato on these A flats. Half staccato, half legato. Shape it. Now this alto here is so beautiful. You can bring that out if you want. Because it happens 3 times, you can change it up. What's coming next? Another B section. And this was, in memorizing this, very helpful for me to see my 5th finger of the left hand on the D flat. By the way, there was a key change that I wanted to point out. When we went into the C section here in measure 81, he had changed to D flat major with 5 flats. So this entire C section was in D flat major. And had we gone for the conclusion of the passionate outburst section to B flat minor, that would have been the relative minor of the D flat major. So that was a strong possibility that he would have made a cadence to the B flat minor, but he never did. He left us in an inquiry there. There was mystery about that. He himself was in an inquiry. I really believe this, that this came from these extraordinarily strong, authentic feelings that had to get expressed immediately in this piece. It's a testimony of that time in his life. But anyway, now our C section is over and we're back to another B section. So let's take our, and this is great because this starts at the top of our page 3 of our CSA, Color Structural Analysis, section B, but it is still in our D flat major. We have exact material that we had the first time, but it's not in that key of A flat major. It's in D flat major. So the scales here are going to be different. So I'm really excited to share this next part with you. The format's the same. The 5-1, the 5-1, starting measure 145. We've had this before. This is pure B section, up a step to E flat. So we're out of that reverie of the C section, the theme 2 and the cocoon of that. Now we're back to the dance. And this piece is a beautiful balance of the dance and the irrepressible lift and catapulting of the dance part of it versus the duets and the sweet, sweet, tender melodies. It's a blend of the two. And what I love about playing this is really a fun piece to play because these upbeats, you get to really, with the hold, it's 3-1. There's a tie over the bar line. Let me show you that. This is really extremely fun to play. This right here and tie on the D flat, next up a step on the E flat, and then the final up to the A flat. So the overall pattern of that's the skeletal outline. And then the 4th scale degree for the final 4 measures with the G flat at the base. Love that part. Let me play this whole thing now and watch how I use my arms on this. There's freedom in this. Kicks, I love this. D flat, D flat, D flat. He's playing on the dance floor. I'm going to step here, I'm going to step here, and I'm going to step here. And I'm stepping here on these D flats. Now the E flat. And the A flat. G flat. Repetition. Now this is a G flat major scale. Prefaced with the C natural and the C flat. So you know G flat major, you've practiced it. And you can just know I start with the C natural, and from here on out, I'm G flat major. And then the next one on the E flat happens to be an A flat major scale. D flat, but he starts with D natural. You could do that, and then when you start on your D natural, it's not an issue. It's just okay. Forget that starting note. That's a little spice he's using to introduce the glissando. But from then on, I'm G flat major straight out. Excuse me, that's A flat major. And it's a crescendo, and it goes as a staccato at the end. So now let's do this whole thing as written. We have the 2 scales, G flat major, and then A flat major. Now this time it goes down to the E flat. Important differences here. The first time it was an octave and a chord. The second time it's a single note and a fifth. And here on our CSA, I have it marked for you here. The first time octave and a chord of D flat major, and on the repetition with glissandi, it's a single note and a fifth. And that went down to the E flat with the different that time. And now, what must follow? We have to come back home, and we do. We have the recapitulation, and it's exactly as it was at the beginning. And looking back at this again, this CSA, I think I really have started making, without fail, color structural analyses for every sharp package. I didn't make them in the early days because I hadn't invented them yet, and I didn't know the power of them. And this text, I've been working on this engraving probably over 2 years now, and I recently learned the piece too. And making this and understanding the order of these sections and the length of these sections and where it's the same and where it's different, this is foolproof. You look at this, you put this in your mind, and you will not mess up on this. So here we are. Now you notice that these are pink stars for systems 1, 2, 3, but the fourth system is a solid pink line. Why is that? Why did I do that? Because this, the solid line, means it's new material. The stars mean it's repetition. The new material, now this I found absolutely fascinating. The first time we had this, and I will, since I'm on page 3, I'm going back to page 1. In our opening material here of the arching arpeggio phrases. Oh, and this, the reason that this is a solid pink and a star pink is because all of this material repeats. So this is actually played twice. With this repetition here, this goes back and plays again. So the second time, that's what these little pink stars mean. But when we talked about in the lesson with the arching arpeggio phrases, just look at the music closely here, that we had 2 measure phrases for the first time. The second time we had 1 measure phrases. And the last time, where we are right now in the piece, in the solid pink box, we have the appearance of a 16th rest. So that last note is even shorter. And that's different. I rarely hear this played on recordings, but there are 3 different ways of playing these arching arpeggio passages. And so here we are, the first, let's just start here. This is the 2 measure phrase. No break. Chord. Now here's the last time with this obvious gap of this. You really have a 16th rest of silence there. And here it is, heads together. And then with the 6th. And then we go to the B section. This is stars, because it's exact repetition. Of this magnificent piece, and here are our scales, the glissandi repetitions with the D flat major and the E flat major scale. This is exact repetition, and we're coming. I have to show you this. After we finish this repetition of this blue section B material is where we get this transitional phrase of 4 measures. So here it becomes very relevant to take these last 4 measures and how he cues off of that 4th scale degree right here. And if he doesn't finish it like he did, he does this. He does it twice for the last time of this. Okay, let me play the whole thing. And then he goes to the orange box with the D, from the D 4th scale degree, he raises that D to the D natural. Take a moment here to break this down. This was another one of those confusing things for me. I don't need to play all of this repetition of the blue box material because we've already done that. But this is new now. Starting, let's see, 33, 4, 5, 6, 237, measure 237, these chords in the left hand. Then the top note goes, and you want to bring that out. And what's under this is this. That same thing. Now, bring out melodically the top notes. Playing these. Now this one changes to these. Just 2 notes instead of 3. So watch the 3 black keys the first time and the 2 the second time. Here are the 3. And I kind of grip them. You see that? I'm kind of clawing them and kneading the keys because I want to stay on and I want to produce a rich, full sound. I don't want this to be, I want it legato. I don't want it, that sounds awful. But the legato, not really releasing those keys. Arms. Took a while to learn that, but that was so beautiful here. And as written, now let's take the last preface leading up to this. Again. There's a 3rd on the top. And a 5th on the top. And now we come to the D section. And this has got to be the most thrilling, exhilarating bit of writing that Chopin has ever done. And it goes like the wind. I call this the dazzling D section. And here it is. There's a lot on this. And of course, this is the concluding part of the piece. And here it is on your color structural analysis. We're right here. You can see we're almost over. This is really a very intricate and demanding, and you must know this inside and out. So I'm going to spend a fair amount of time here showing really what's in here. First, let's just play it as written. So sorry. Let's just take that much. So in the left hand now we have this beautiful line in the tenor, which I will bring out. A flat, G flat, F, chords. And 7th. So that's a difference there. So, and up here, now the moving notes go to the bass note. A flat, E flat, A flat, A natural, B flat, this gorgeous F natural, which is a half note, he holds it. The bass finally got a counter melody there. And over it now the right hand, these starting measure 245, triplet, triplet, now that broken third, triplet. That passage is tricky. That is right. Here. You have to tuck under and legato up. And now the repetition an octave higher. This is all the same so far. Now it changes and goes chromatic. First time it went. Second time it went. In here. I really want this very fingery and light and fluttery. I mean, the exhilarating, the excitement of this, and you've got to have real good articulation in here to get the character of this. Now we come to the last part on page 9, and this is just stupendous writing. The right hand now, and I'm going to bring up my working copy because the notes are bigger. And go ahead and mark your working copy. If you do purchase this chart, mark the working copy here because these are the hardest measures in the whole piece. I think everything in this yellow box is hard. It took me months and months and months to get this in my hands so that I could toss it off as I just did. And that's the other thing. It takes a lot of patience and it's worth it. This is your daily bread. You go, you practice every day, and if you do the right thing consistently over time, you will get the results you want. It's just not instant. So here we have this beautiful 8-measure passage, and we're going to break it down into what I will call an A and a B. The A is this measure, skip a measure, this, skip a measure, this, skip a measure, this, and then the B's. So we're going to take first, we're going to alternate. And you'll hear the pattern. We start on the C on measure 261. And those were all chromatic, starting on the C. The next one starts on D flat with a whole step. D flat to E flat. And now all chromatic. The next one starts on the E flat, all chromatic until whole step at the end. And the final starts on the F. Not chromatic. So I practiced a lot like this, starting on the C, the D flat, the E flat, and the F. It's beautiful. Now let's take the alternating measures, starting on the G flat, measure 262. Next one on the A flat. The next one on the B flat. And the E flat. And now you can put this together. You can now add the bass notes. Again, wrapping up on the dominant, all E flat. It's got the bookends. The introduction was all dominant, pedal point in the bass, and we are returning to it now. Let's play it as, something else I was gonna, oh yes, I wanted to take this. This was another thing that really helped me, starting measure 261, to just do this. Weird, but that's right. Or that's what I mean. There's all these tricky patterns with no repetitions. It's like he had so much of the same all the way through, and then at the end it's like, oh my goodness, this is just a barrage, just like a kaleidoscope collage of I see all these little molecules just bumping into each other and this randomness, and yet at the same time there's this divine order with the whole thing that only Chopin could do. There's never been anybody like Chopin, and there never will be. So here it is all written together now, and when we get to this E flat pedal point after these 8 measures, listen for that. So here's the bass line. That's the whole line. Okay, before we get to that last part, here this measure 269. Hear the pattern. Now I pull out on these. I pull out of the white keys. I kind of scooch like this, and then it helps me to get accurate. If I try to stay all inside these black keys, I miss some of the notes, and I hit double notes. It was a mess for months until I finally figured out how to glide my hand out, kind of sliding this diagonal direction. See if that comes across on this. I pull. And then this is a gorgeous part, this chord. And that's what it's doing. It's setting up this. The hands come together. So enjoy that part of the piece, these last spirally spinning things tumbling down, and the left hand. that's your technique. You can even see me spinning with my arm. I'm pulling, 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 pulling. Let's do it again. This is nice. Make it melodic. Inverted melodic motive. He's getting ready to say goodbye now. Dance is almost over. This is a bit of magic in here with these 6 and the 4s. And the same skips that we had with the C section. We have a little reference back to that. And notice this. Oh, this is really neat. That's the bass line. Now these chords in the bass, the left hand, and I'll show you my music here because I spent also a fair amount of time starting here at this measure 277. Every one of these 4 measures, 4 measure phrases, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, have a different pattern of chords for the left hand. So you need to really be careful on this, be very mindful. Let's take a look at these now. D flat. That was the first 4. Here are the next 4. You could clearly hear that the top notes next 4. Ah. Ah. 2 E flat bass notes. See, that's beautiful. He never stops creating to the very end. He's not saying, oh, I'm just done now, piece is over. No, he's taking this infinite care and thoughtfulness of continuing the ever-evolving dialogue of changing harmonies. The last 4 measures. None of these 4 phrases are the same. Now, if I put that all together, we have in the right hand, and then he goes down an octave, and then back up, and just like the intro, repeating 3 times. He's doing this again. This is the motive. Twice. 3 times, and instead of the descending, it's an ascending for the 4th time. Here. Stunning. Now all together, because there's some hand crossing in here, which is also tricky. Take a deep breath before you start. Now pedaling, I get asked all the time, pedaling, this, I've chosen to mark the pedaling through here, full measure pedaling, but I've come to like less pedal than that. just enough to connect the bass note to the second beat, like this. Pedal off, pedal off, pedal off, pedal off. Just something to consider. See how that sustains that E flat without too much pedal? And then it crosses over here, right hand. That was really tricky for me. Let me do that again. Left hand over. Look at the difference. And this one. Now the right hand crosses over. I love this. It's got E flat and F flat. Little tiny dissonance there. How marvelous that sounds, rather than just to keep a straight second inversion of A flat. How boring it would be if he just kept this chord. But will you get that? This is magic. Are we really done? That's what I hear. That was nice. And fermata at the end. You can hold that. So I've really enjoyed sharing this piece with you. I have fallen deeply in love with this piece. And people often ask me, what's your favorite composer? What's your favorite piece? And I'm not the only one that gives this answer, but the answer is whatever I'm working on right now. And that's really what you want to do, is decide carefully what you're going to learn, because you're going to be making a commitment to the piece. And don't worry if you start it and it doesn't work and you have to put it aside. I've put pieces aside so many times, and I always date a piece at the upper left-hand corner of the title page when I start it. And in some of my pieces I have dates that are 5 years apart, 10 years apart, 10 years apart, and finally I get to it. And sometimes that's because I got tired of it, and other times it's because something else was calling to me more. But you know, this is that's all the fun of it. It's a one great big long exploration and journey, and you just go with it. So I'm going to close the lesson now with a lovely story, lovely for me. My beloved mother, and she and my husband are my best friends, and my husband and I went to visit her last week for her 92nd birthday, and she is alive and well. And those of you that might remember her playing the Bach Prelude in C major from the Well-Tempered Clavier Book 1, that she played it every day. Well, guess what? She still plays it every day. And this time I asked her to play it for me, because I wanted to be sure she still really could play it, and it was so beautiful. I was so deeply touched. And one of the things that we talked about on this visit is my close here. And she said, the secret of life is go to the things that make you happy. Go to the things that lift you up. Surround yourself with the things and the people that bring you joy. And I thought that was it right there. And this piece is it. This brings me joy. So I hope you'll play it, and I hope the lesson has been helpful. And I just love to hear from you, how this is working for you. And take that joy with you too. Thank you.